Hello, and welcome to Unfiltered and Overloaded, the podcast where the volume is high, the filters are off, the vibes are very neurodivergent. This is a space where autism and ADHD run the mic, and if at all possible, we can actually get it recorded. There's a story behind that. LGBTQ plus voices take centre stage, and being too much and sometimes not enough, actually the whole point. We're talking real life, real chaos, real feelings with humour, honesty and just the right amount of dramatic flair. Hold it together, Kroy. Expect laughs, hot takes and conversations that bounce around faster than an ADHD brain at 2 o'clock in the morning. So buckle up, freely, stim, be yourselves unapologetically and get ready, because this is Unfiltered and Overloaded, and episode 4 starts right now. Yes, this is the second take because the recording decided to glitch and we didn't even notice that it stopped. It didn't even tell us.
We've just been chatting away for like the best part of 20 minutes, just going and just rambling.
And everything else. And we were covering RSD and we were talking about energy and we were talking about all the different parts. And you know what? We're going to talk about energy, aren't we? And we're going to talk about energy because guess what? Both of us are knackered.
Yeah.
And we are wired and we are tired and we're having to do this again. And we're both trying to keep our faces straight.
No, we can't do it. Oh my God. What if that was like our best work? If you want to see our best work, go to the deleted bit.
Well, if we can find it, it's buggered off somewhere. We were actually coherent. Guess what? We were actually sounding like we knew what we were doing.
Oh my God.
So now we really are unfiltered.
Oh God, yeah. Just take a breath, drink, just let it. Maybe that was the universe just because we weren't firing on all cylinders. We felt, well, I did particularly felt very shit. I found dopamine. I feel like, whoa, I found the pot of gold. It actually has happened. And now I'm smiling.
Yeah.
So thank you, Zoom, for doing that.
I mean, I must admit, I was saying earlier, I've done between Friday at 11 o'clock-ish until about 3 o'clock today. I've done bookended the weekend with about 6 hours driving each way. I think it's like, I've done about 12 hours for a 1.5 day LARPing event. For LARPing, for those who don't know, it's live action role play. I get dressed up and I'm not myself for a whole time and a bit, which was great. And I came home to an empty house and it was cold and I had to unpack. And I had the energy of a slug across a dry path. And I could almost feel my teacher's hat being there to try and keep myself together. And now discovering that I'm now sitting here giggling. I've got so much energy now.
Yeah. This is that dopamine rush that I've been waiting for all day. I mean, if you want to see how my day was, there's a live video on Facebook of how I was this morning compared to now. I don't know what this is. I don't know which part of my autism this is, but when you were just talking about LARPing there, I was like, my God, doesn't that almost sound like masking as well? Like you get to be somebody else where you don't have to be you. And I'm like, I am so coming to LARPing event one time.
I'm going to have to take you to Empire with me. You are going to have to come to Empire with me. I love it. And I tell you what, I love Empire. I love LARP because, yes, you can put on a character and pretend to be someone totally different. And I've done that. I've done something like that. But one of the things I like about Empire is because it's a slow burn, because there's like an overarching canon. It runs every year. There's 4 big events and there's always stories and you meet up with the same people and they slowly change. But you can, if you want, lean into a part of yourself that you want to explore.
Yes.
And you can lean into a part of your personality. I mean, I've had some amazing things that have cropped up during Empire and are totally out of my control. What has been so scary is how it's paralleled by real life. But you're right. It's amazing how something can just pick you up. LARPing does it for me. But you say the recording, not recording, for some reason has just shifted our whole energy. And we're both like 2 kids just giggling now.
Yeah, I keep looking across the top of the screen like, does it say it's recording? Is the light still on?
Yeah, I am now looking at it and going, yes, it's still flashing. It's still going. It's a really hard thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really hard. And I think at one point, if this had happened before in my past, my level of anxiety was so high I'd have burst into tears. I'd have been sitting here going, what does Kroy think? Oh my God, he's going to think I'm a failure. This is a terrible. He's going to think I'm really stupid. I'd be beating me and I'd be trying to go on it and I'd be so anxious.
Yeah.
And I realize how much I've grown and how much I've changed and how
Yeah.
not having that level of anxiety has actually now helped me with my energy. And I'm wondering whether half the time with people who are neurodiverse, whether a lot of our energy issues is to do with bloody anxiety and rejection sensitive dysphoria and not knowing where we stand because the whole society seems to be playing a game that we don't understand.
Yes, yes, game playing. Oh, yes. I do not know where my body has been, what it's been doing today. You mentioned the dreaded kind of RSD, and it's like that has consumed me. And the first take, we were really kind of talking about it, and we were going down a path where maybe we might have needed to call some help at some point. Something has switched. Something has just gone, fuck off, RSD. We're not dealing with you now. I feel very kiddish. I feel like if there was lots of buttons in front of me, I would want to press them right now just to see what they would do. Like, do not press that button because I know you too well. You'll be pressing all sorts of buttons. It was last night. So the RSD was starting because it's a slow burner. I feel like my RSD, very slow burner. So something happened. I could start to feel annoyed about it. And I was trying to make sense of it all. And I was like, okay, now you won't hear many therapists say this, but I went to Chat GPT and I was just playing around with photos. And I found this really amazing little thing on ChatGPT that turns your picture into a plushie. And oh my God, my plushie is so cute and squishy. I will send it to you later. And I made one of Ryan and it's got his little kind of like walking pole in it. And I want to find someone. So if anyone is listening that makes plushies from pictures, so you are going to have to send me your photo and we will make you a plushie as well.
Spoiler alert, if my kids decide to watch this, yeah, that's what you're going to be getting for Christmas next year or this year.
Yeah, it was just it kind of fed my kid thing. And it's like when we were getting ready for that first take, which will be consigned to the bin now, we were like, oh, should we get a drink? But what if people are watching? Should we get we were like, oh, sod it, let's just get a drink. Why?
Yeah, but you're right. Your plushies is crazy, having a drink, and that's why I'm in holding my tankard because that feels like I don't know if I'm really out of character yet.
Just gonna send you via the WhatsApp the two plushie pictures. So on the unfiltered and overloaded side. So have a look at those two. Have you got your phone with you?
Oh, I've got them up here. Oh, they are cute. Oh my God. Everybody listening or anybody watching, these are cute. I'm going to let Kroy put the link in and you can have a look at these. They are so cute. What is it? I remember being told a while ago that I was childish. I needed to grow up. And my kids had this phrase from very young. They came up with grumpy grown-ups and awesome adults. Grumpy grown-ups were people who got into adulthood trying to be something that really they're not.
Yeah.
Trying to be a grown-up. Whereas awesome adults, they are people who just accept themselves. They have a big kid inside them. They haven't got a clue, but they're making the best and they are just accepting of who they are. And they just are an adult. It doesn't mean that the child inside is not allowed to play. They are allowed to play. I mean, the number of adults that I actually meet who can't remember their childhood,
Yes.
don't know how to play.
Yes.
I know I've been there. I have been at a time in my life, the grumpy grown up. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad that that has kind of gone away and that adult that can remember the child. I've always had that part of me that loved, as you say, pushing the buttons.
Yes, that's the thing is I was speaking to someone this week about how I used to love to blow bubbles. And that's not a euphemism, by the way, just because I'm a gay guy. That's not a euphemism. But I used to love it. And now I would never dream of just going and getting a tub of bubbles and putting in my basket.
I want to go outside because I'm sure that somewhere in my LARP kit is a couple of things that bubble. I actually now want to blow bubbles. Oh no, this is really bad. You see, I even have the one sitting next to me. That's how, yeah, some of my teaching sessions are quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's how I found I had to search high and low for you, didn't I? I had to, God, I mean, they made me work to find you. I mean, they had hid you in kind of like the back office, in a drawer, in a cupboard with bloomin' locks and all these things that I had to jump through just to go, why is this person not at the forefront? And I think it's when I was asking the question of, do you have somebody that is autistic or ADHD? somebody like me, please, because that's what I needed. Because all the other people I went through, absolutely fine, but didn't get me. One had some funky beads in the background that I just didn't like because of sensory things. One had a wonky door handle that just bugged the fuck out of me the whole session. And I was like, nope, that's not going to work.
How are you coping with the backdrop of my office? I mean, go on. I mean, I've got flowers that, oh God, they're
I
actually dead.
I
I have students who do spot the difference. I didn't realize that until some of them said, they suddenly go, oh, you've moved things on your shelf. You said, I'm slowly cut things I'm not using anymore. I'm giving away. I'm sorting things out. Oh, hey, you got this on your wall. I've noticed you haven't taken your bats down. I said, the bats stay up there. It's not just for Halloween. Bats are there for all year. I can't believe that not recording things proper, that thing just switching off or doing something. I don't know. Maybe I just had a complete ADHD moment and thought, having clicked it once, it was God only knows. I just sit there and think, yep, okay, this is how it is. But that whole thing became funny,
Yes.
rather than an embarrassment or anxiety creating. We just looked at each other and went, that's it, we're getting a drink.
Yeah, because we didn't notice we were just we were in almost what we call flow state. We were just there talking, but the energy felt very different than it feels now. What I've noticed is my energy changes when I don't notice it's changing. Like I can be going
Yeah.
along, like I have done for like the past couple of years. I've been doing my notes, my paperwork at the end of sessions a certain way. The last 2 weeks, another side of me, so not Philip, who we might get into, not that side, not the RSD side, but somehow the energy is starting to shift that I'm doing things differently. Now, I know that most autistic people like a routine, but somehow my routine is changing without me knowing it's changing.
Yes, and the worst of it is, it will suddenly shift. You don't notice it until it's too late, and then suddenly everyone's chasing you for the things that you haven't done, and you're sitting there going,
Yes.
I can do my sessions well. And yet sometimes if I start using the formal stuff, maybe I've had an experience with a couple of clients and I thought, oh crumbs, I really should have done this, I should have done that. So I go into, we're going to do it this way. And my energy is different. And then I notice the interaction with the clients are different. And they're looking at you as if to say, is everything all right kind of thing? And it's like, okay, I can't win either way.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of like, well, I need to find a way that I can do things. And I actually find now, because of the way Zoom works, and I can do the AI notes, whereas with Teams, I have to do a complete transcript. It doesn't do AI. And I have some students who don't want AI, and that's absolutely fine. I respect that. I check in with all of them. But for me, it's an absolute godsend, because often when I'm in a flow, when I'm done and dusted, I can come to the end, and a lot of people can just top up the notes in 5 minutes. And I'm like, what have I just done?
Yes. Yes.
And again, when my energy is really low and I'm really having to focus in a session, trying to take notes and function is an impossibility.
Yes, 100%. I'm slamming my hands down on the table because when I was in college, we used to have tutorials. We had a tutorial where I had to go and sit in an office. Let's just put it this way. Your office looks tidy compared to hers. Okay. And I felt really uncomfortable in that office. Okay. She told me all this stuff. I came out and stood there and went, I have no idea what's just gone on in that office. But she would not let me not let me record it, even though I needed it, because I've now learned that I can go into things, see something, nod away, come out of that room, and suddenly it's almost like I've walked through a time warp or something and gone, oh, what was that? There's a creature in Doctor Who, The Silence, I think it is. When you see them, you can see them, but as soon as you look away, you don't remember seeing them. And it's
Yes.
like I have that with food. So we can go shopping. The fridge is full of food. I shut the doors, it's gone.
Yes. That object permanency.
Yes.
And it's like, and then people wonder why we have this level of anxiety that puts us into that sympathetic nervous system state.
Yes.
Constantly in that kind of anxiety, fright state of, I've got to be aware because I'm not aware.
Yeah.
And I now actually am saying to people, I'm sorry, I heard what you said, but I haven't processed it.
Yes.
Can we go through that again? But I may have to ask questions. I may have to take note, because otherwise I now just go, I have a processing problem. I will hear you, understand you, but then it's gone and I have to have it repeated.
Yeah.
And that's really hard. And you get a lot of people getting really tired of it. And then you become aware of that. So again, your energy in trying to navigate that. And I think it's the energy of navigation that is exhausting. And this is where, if I say I'm tired, the amount of times I've been told, well, get an early night. Why don't you just take an hour off, have a nap? And it's like a nap and a sleep isn't going to deal with this. Then I talk about, I feel like there's like an ADHD crash, which is hyper and then drop.
Yeah.
And then you've got the autism crash of sensory overload. And I think I'm realizing now I'm having to be incredibly specific because otherwise I get just get an early night, just take a day off, just take it easy. And I get really pissy with the word just then. And then I realize I get defensive. And then people say, you have to justify yourself. But you've just made me feel like I have to justify and explain. And then I'm even more exhausted afterwards. And then I think they're looking at me as if I'm a child or a bit stupid and that they're going to talk to me slowly and maybe a bit more loudly. And it's like, no, I'm not deaf. I've got auditory discrimination issues, but I don't need it louder because actually that hurts my ear because of sensory stuff. So it's like, it's trying to navigate a labyrinth of dead ends and prickles and noise. And it's just, life is hard work.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly difficult. And when you talk about RSD, that's a whole different bag as well.
Yes.
Dealing with impulse control and waking up the next day and realizing I shouldn't have bought that. I've got to take it back.
No, 40 tins of vegetable pate. No, I haven't done that. And getting judged by the postman. Oh my God. Before Christmas, it was like, have you not got all your Christmas presents yet? I was just like, no, I didn't really know what to say to that. And it's not my fault I scroll at night and then order about 40 tins of pate that I don't know what's coming anymore. I don't know what it is, but I mean, so it was my partner's birthday this last week and it was lovely. So usually we get flowers for each other because why not? Men can have flowers as well. So I went to Interflora and I wanted a balloon. They don't do balloons anymore. So I went to Moonpig and I had a look at Moonpig. I wasn't feeling the vibe. So I wanted balloons. That's what Philip wanted, balloons. So I was like, I just typed in balloons and this place came up, Balloon Monkey. Never used them before. I was like, am I getting scammed? Is this a scam? It was a lot of money. And I was like, oh, you can design an AI balloon. You just tell it what you want and it does it. And this massive, great big box arrived. And of course, Ryan comes home and he's like, what have you ordered? I'm like, it's not me. It's actually for you. It's not mine, but you open it and this balloon just shoots up out of the box. And then there was like all this confetti that we were just throwing at each other, this childish energy, and they give you a pack of free love hearts. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't had love hearts for ages. So that kid energy of, just like how we had it before. And can we just have a check-in? Is it still recording?
Yeah, it's still recorded. It's still there. It hasn't disappeared this time.
When you were talking about when you leave and suddenly you lose an hour, I was like, yes, we were just sitting here and in a flow state. Neither one of us had noticed that actually it had stopped recording. Now we do that, don't we? We do that a lot of times with energy, but I'm thinking about, how we were talking before and we were having a great conversation. If we could find it, it was fantastic. It was Oscar winning. We've all missed that on it.
But it is that ADHD-ness, isn't it?
Yeah.
That flow state.
Yeah. And I think for me, what had really kicked my ass was the RSD today. It had floored me. And I think the universe needed to put me in this space and needed something to happen because actually we were kind of spiraling a little bit.
Both beginning to recognize some really deep shit.
Yeah.
And I think that's a podcast all by itself, that kind of when you're facing the darkest parts of yourself and having the capacity. And I think that goes with energy is capacity. I've got a bit more life experience just because of time frame, that's just how it you go through life. You just gather more experience and more experiences. But I know that, it's, dealing with the darker sides of ourselves, the things that so much around us will shame us for. I mean, there's a lot of things that we deal with that are shameful in other people's lives. They make us to feel shamed. They see it, they describe it as shameful when actually it's not.
No.
And then when real stuff happens, we don't tell anybody because they can't cope with the little bits.
Yes.
And then you become ferociously self-reliant. You're of asking for help because you're not sure if people are going to judge you or if they're going to bother or they're going to mock you or bully you. I think for me, have had such a profound experience with support in the last couple of years, and especially through my training, that and I looked back and I was reflecting the other day and I suddenly thought, my God, I have got such a huge capacity now. But I know a large part of that came from when I was a teenager. I read the book Dune by Frank Herbert, and in it, it's got the litany against fear. And it's roughly goes, I must not fear. I changed it to will not. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. It's that little death that obliterates all. I will face my fear. I will let it pass through me and around me. And when I turn my inner eye and look back, there will be nothing, only I will be standing. And I remember I must have been about 13, 14 when I read that. And I recognized then I was full of fear. So I decided to use that as my mantra. So if somebody said to me, would I like to go abseiling when I joined the Venture Scouts? Yes, I was one of the first females to join the Venture Scouts at 14, in the late 70s. I said yes. And I was terrified of heights. And I'm terrified of climbing because I'm hypermobile. I overcame my fear of climbing and heights because my first experience of abseiling, literally leaning back off a 200-foot rock and just free falling on a rope, was so exhilarating. And that was the first thing I did after I discovered this litany against fear. And then I took life like that. I just decided I was going to confront it. But I got to a point in my menopause where things were so bad, inside, outside, I was just in this crazy pain, fog of chaos. When I gave into fear, that's when I imploded, and that's when I started getting suicidal ideation, and that's when I kind of broke down and things. And it took me a long time to start facing my fears again, a long time. But when I realize now the difference in energy, and it's really taught me that so much of my energy has been tied up with anxiety.
I've always loved a poem that I never know who wrote it because there's some controversy around who wrote it, but it's just called Two Dead Boys, and it makes no sense, and it's got a rhythm to it when you read it. Have a look at it if you can. It makes no sense whatsoever. It talks about like a blind person, but the blind person saw the event, and you're like, well, hold on a minute, you can't possibly have seen it. And it's talking about two dead boys got up in the middle of the night, and it's like, well, how can they? So I love it, but I'm now realizing that it has an ADHD almost energy to it because it's so muddled and none of it makes sense. And actually, when we're sitting here together, we connect, we make sense. But when we take this and we add maybe a neurotypical or someone who thinks differently into the mix, suddenly the energy changes because they look at you almost as to go, well, you need to start performing. You need to start doing something because they have an idea of who you are. So then your energy kind of changes with them, and I've noticed that if I'm around, I'll call them my kind of people, I'm great. I can function. I can be the clown. I can get the attention, but put me in a room of 50 people that I don't know. I'm the person in the corner clawing my way out of the room, desperate, searching to get out because that oppressive feeling, it's so instant that I don't belong there. I don't fit there. Like when I was volunteering for Cubs, there was this young lad that would always come in and he would always run to the corner of the room, and I knew he was different. And I thought, I wonder if I was like that when I was younger. Did anybody notice? When we talk about energy and how the energy, for me, the massive shift was prior to diagnosis. Here's the kicker. I could function. I could do things. I don't think I would say that person had no anxiety. He was great. After diagnosis, it's almost like you take the suit off and you don't have to act anymore. And there's a reason why you are. And you just go and you just crash to the floor basically because all the shit comes out of the cupboards and you're like, nope, not doing that. That's fine. I'm still learning now, being a late diagnosee. It doesn't sound right. Late diagnosis. Late diagnosis.
Whatever.
Whatever. But, we were talking before about, going into a room and seeing objects, but then leaving the room and not knowing what that object was. I do that multiple times in a day. And if you don't know it, it can drive you mad because you suddenly start thinking, is it dementia? Am I losing my mind?
Yes. You start questioning yourself. And yes, you can function and you've got that suit on. But what people don't realize is the damage that's going on underneath. And I think that's partly what was happening with me. I think my menopause ripped off the suit and literally everything just started to fall apart.
Mm.
And yes, the HRT has been great because it's helped me with my ADHD and especially with my bone because I'm celiac. And if it's not managed properly, you end up with bone loss. And
Yeah.
because of just how bad things were. And I mean, now I'm like 5 years down the line with my ADHD meds, my HRT. I understand I'm autistic now. What was that, a year ago? And having those things in place, it means I'm now moving towards a functionality. And I don't like high functioning ADHD or high functioning autistic because functioning on one level belies the fact that often we struggle to function on other levels.
Yes.
And we can be brilliant in these areas and absolutely non-functional in other areas. But it gives you permission to actually be compassionate to yourself and forgiving and patient,
Yeah.
and then exhaustion. ADHD crashes are horrendous. You have that wonderful moments, times. It can be a minute, it can be an hour, it can be a day, it can be a week. But then afterwards, payback is ferocious.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so difficult, isn't it? Because I'm just even going back to when I started to get diagnosed and the reaction of the person doing it not being a joyful reaction to that energy level, not being congratulations, which is actually what I would have wanted. It was almost like, yep, you're autistic, there's the door, bye. And it's like when I help people figure it out for themselves, I always tell them there are no cheerleaders. There's no confetti cannons going off. There's no welcome pack. You don't even get a free fidget toy. So even from the minute you're finding out, it's almost that negative energy. They make it feel like it's a dirty secret. Yeah.
This is where I'm concerned because I'm hearing so many, like your story, so
Yeah.
many people having such a different experience. And I'm thinking, this is not fair.
No.
I think actually, in some respects, saying, look, we're going to reassess you as having autism. This will explain a lot for you. And you need to be proud of how you've come through and that you've got the awareness to come here.
Yeah.
And this is the support networks you can get. They should have a leaflet for you. They should have things for you and say, actually, I think you can celebrate that you are finding your journey, your way forward.
Yes.
I think just it doesn't take a minute to have that smile, that well done.
Yeah. And that's what you need. So mine was via the NHS. Uh, Autism, somebody else had pointed out to me. Dyslexia was private. They were much better. That was a company in Hull. I knew I already had it. ADHD was via the NHS. And again, I already knew. So none of it was new information to me, but it was just the way that it could have been contained better,
Yes.
just having that talk, and I don't know if anyone that was doing my diagnosis were themselves ADHD or autistic, but how much of a difference that would have made to me having maybe half an hour afterwards, just simply explaining stuff. Because
Yeah.
here, trying to show people, actually, this is who we are. We're completely unfiltered, overloaded most of the time. We don't always record things properly, but
And sometimes we turn up exhausted and sometimes we're good. And sometimes and I think that's it. I think it's and I think also it's learning what the different states of energy that you're experiencing and where it's come from. I drove majority of the journey back today in almost silence. Now, in the past, my anxiety would have driven me to, but I could put the music on. I could be in silence. I actually felt comfortable. And my two friends, one of which is neurodiverse, the other one's mad as a box and frogs, and that's cool too, but they need their space. They need to be quiet, very much so at times. I didn't feel weird. I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel walking on eggshells.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, God, this is great. Absolutely amazing. So I was able to teach, but I did flag up with my student and said, I've just done 5 hours of driving. I'm a little tired and I may be a bit slow. And if I have to ask you to repeat yourself, it's just because my processing's even slower still. But as
Yeah.
it was, the energy of the session was lovely. We were sharing stuff and it was like really great. And I thought, oh, I feel actually quite good now. And I'm not exhausted. I'm a little tired from the journey, but
Mhm.
that's to be expected. But I'm not exhausted. I'm not burnt out. And I was like, this is a new experience. I'm liking this.
Yeah. It's great when you can have those kind of moments, those breakthrough moments where you start recognizing what's happening, and what's kind of changing for you. Because, we talk about energy. And again, energy is fluid. It moves, it changes as we change. You can be around one group of people, it's great energy, around another group of people, and you start going somewhere where maybe you don't really want to be. And it's so interesting. So we had a guy that came to the door the other night, and it was quite funny actually. We never have anyone come to the door. So we heard this knock, and me and Ryan just shoot and look at each other like, what the fuck's that noise? Like, what is it? And we're like, oh, I think it might be the door. So we go to the door, and I don't know if you might remember the people that used to come to the door with the holdalls selling dusters. We have been here a few years now, never seen one since I was younger. Okay. This guy turned up. He's giving us all his story. Okay. Now, I don't think his story was a great story to be sharing on a doorstep at nighttime in the dark with two strange people. He's telling us he's just got out of jail. He's just got, he's reformed. He's all of this. He looks a little bit dirty. We're kind of backing away, but we're trying to be as nice as we can. And I'm shooting a look to Ryan that says, buy something. Let's just be polite, but buy something and let him go. But my energy shifted to one of, I almost needed to back away, but I knew I had to be kind as well. So there's that empathy that I'm trying to show. And when I said to him, oh, you can just put your bag down, he kind of was like, what, here? And it was almost like no one in the village had ever said that to him. And he was talking about how he'd been to different doors and every door was different. Some people were nice. Some people were just basically, please go away. We're not even going to talk to you. And it's that form of energy. Like, it doesn't cost us to be nice, does it?
I think there's a difference, as we said before, between nice and kind. In the general term, being kind doesn't cost.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage to say, I've just come out of jail
Yes.
and I'm trying to find some funds. I'm trying to go straight. And the thing is, so many people who are in prison are autistic and ADHD, dyslexic. They've had hearing impairments, visual impairments, and of course, a lot generationally, they used to have horrible glasses and big hearing aids, and they wouldn't wear them because they got picked on.
Yeah.
So they were the class clown. They got into trouble. Whereas if they'd had nice little ones and proper things, and do you know what I mean? Nowadays they're a bit more sensitive about that, and they are more careful with kids and that sort of thing. But all of these things add to young people's lives, and early diagnosis and all this sort of thing is so important. And you wonder why these people's lives are so full of this. We know there's a link between ADHD and impulsivity and doing crazy stuff and getting involved with the wrong crowd. Because if they're accepted, they feel relieved.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the difficulty, isn't it? Is trying to get the flippin' education people to understand why we have these difficulties, why we need to show up. There's a reason why I will not see clients until 11 o'clock because simply I don't function. You're very lucky if you get a 10 o'clock appointment because I'm not functioning at that time, but I will work later. I go on till like 8 o'clock because I can function much later. But
Yeah.
when you're trying to do things in, college and things like that, they don't want to adjust anything. They don't want that. They think that it's not their problem. When I got given DSA, the college simply went, it's not our problem anymore. They can deal with it. We don't need to deal with you anymore. And that's hard because, again, when you're not seen, your energy levels plummet.
I agree. I must admit that with the changing of my meds before Christmas, and I'm not sleepy when I take them. I go to sleep fairly well. My quality of sleep, should I say, my quality of sleep is much better. But the knock-on effect it's had is I'm sleeping through alarms, and I'm having to say to students, I got to start at 10 o'clock. And if they say, can we fit in? And I say, I can turn up for 9 o'clock, but I can't guarantee that if the lights are on, anyone's home. And at the moment, I've got scheduled like morning and then late afternoon and evening, and I've got these huge gaps in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
For me at the moment, it's actually been a bit of a godsend because I can get other things done that needs to be done. I've got so much I've got to do at the moment, what with trying to finish my accreditation and starting an entrepreneurship course to really get all of that work up and running as a business, and sort of really get that business rolling. And it's like trying to run a consultancy and do the academic tutoring and then set up this business. And people keep saying to me, how do you do it? How do you do it? And I go, I don't do housework. I just put everything away where it needs to be. I put everything back. I make sure. And if I suddenly get a mad moment of energy, which I did, you're not going to believe this, I realised I've been sitting in my chair. I finally found the glue to fix my wobble board.
Right.
But suddenly I got the energy. Suddenly it was this mad moment because I was feeling really tired. I had the energy for the rest of the 4 hours I had to teach until about 9:30 at night.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I've got my wobble board fixed and I've hoovered under my desk and around my chair. And it's a bit tiny, it's like, great,
That's the thing, isn't it? Is when we are, talking about energy, and you tell people like, about the autism, the ADHD, and they kind of go, "Oh, see, you can't really do much." And it's like, no, actually, there are days where I wake up and the energy is pulsing through you. That you get so much done, and you stop and look at the clock, and you're like, "Oh my god, it's only like 10 o'clock in the morning. What's happened? I've done as I call it. Once I've got the dishwasher on and the washing machine going, I call that the staff. Okay, so I call it. I've got the staff going, and I'm doing all this stuff. And sometimes, like now, we're talking about the energy as we're moving into spring, even though your daffodils are dead, which we can see. It's that thing of I love to see spring coming when I can see the bulbs coming through and the daffodils and the lambs in the field. I feel rejuvenated. This is really weird for me. I can already feel spring clean energy coming through me. I can feel that energy of I want to start moving stuff.
Yes.
And you do. Sometimes you sit. My mum was completely neurodivergent. I'm so sure of it. Every week she would move something. And it was like, but you just did that. Like, especially in the garden, she would dig a flower bed one week. The next week it would be grassed over and be somewhere else. And you're kind of like, what's happening? But it's that constant change. Like people don't get this about our energy. So this sounds completely random, but I don't like chaos, but I like my chaos. I don't like other people's music, but I love my music. When Ryan puts the radio on in the car, he will tell you, I hate it. I cannot stand listening to the radio. I just want to listen to a piece of music that I want to listen to, that gives me that dopamine hit. But it's difficult when you're sharing a space. It's almost like, when you're sharing a bed with someone's too hot, someone's too cold. So, like, I've always had 3 pillows, so my neck is most probably fucked when I get older, but who cares? My mum would tell you when I was at home, I had a double bed and I would have 6 pillows. But by the morning, I'd be sleeping on no pillows. But
Yes.
it's off. I have to have them when I get into bed. And this was something that I learned just fairly recently from another kind of podcaster and ADHD people, Rich and Roxy. And she was talking about when she goes to bed, she's hyper aware of her ribs. Now, I sleep on my side and I've always felt my ribs digging out. And I didn't know that this was like possibly an ADHD thing. And I was like, again, your brain clicks and you go, but I didn't know that. I just thought it was me that I couldn't get comfortable. But I'm always aware. So I sleep on my right side, like in the fetal position. And it's always my ribs that hurt the most. Can't get comfortable. Just takes me ages. And I was like, wow.
Absolutely. And this whole thing about how walking through life, trying to navigate, knowing that communication is difficult and how we function is different. And it's not being idle or lazy or just being difficult. It's all about control because so much is out of our control to an extent that it's painful, it's overloading. So much that comes to us is unfiltered and we don't have the capacity to filter and we get absolutely burnt out by it. ADHD burnout, autistic burnout. And of course, underneath all of that, you get the anxiety, then you get fear, then you get terror. And as it goes on, the stress is going on and on and on. And people think trauma is one big thing, but can also be something that just consistently, constantly puts you in a state of fear and anxiety and terror. But I think a big part of all of this is having compassion for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
If we have understanding of what we're dealing with, and we can then have compassion, we can forgive ourselves for the things that we feel really bad about. It's like, oh yeah. The shame drops away, the anxiety drops, and if things are put in place so that we can function in our weird ways, then we are an amazing, productive community.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think I've run out of energy.
Kroy, it's been a magic. Well, an end of a fantastic weekend for LARPing for me. And I'm glad that you found some energy. Anyway, everybody, hope you've enjoyed our ramblings on energy. And yeah, spring is coming and the snowdrops are out. Go well, and I'll see you next time, Kroy.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.